Hey, thank you so much for joining us. You are either watching or listening to The Climb. The Climb is brought to you by The Digital Mastermind. The Digital Mastermind is a group of agency owners that share the latest tips, tricks, tools, and everything they can to help one another grow. If you would like to join The Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at Jon, at digitalmastermind.com. Today, we have a fantastic show. We had the opportunity to speak with Chris Martinez at the Duda agency about all things outsourcing, working with agencies. Just a fantastic show. Before we get into that, Dave, why don't you come out here?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So I thought I loved his passion. He had a great energy. I like the fact that he's in a very similar space that we are. We work with a ton of agencies as well. Now, granted, he only works with agencies.
Right.
But yeah, I'd love to get some of your thoughts on it, and let's go ahead and rip this thing around.
Yeah, I mean, very similar approach of what we do. I mean, we don't do exclusively that. And like I asked him if they do direct clients at all, and I don't think they do that at all. It's just purely agency work, which is great. We also, tend to dabble into a little bit more complex things, more like software development, not just, marketing stuff. So there's some differentiators there, but yeah, the guy was super passionate, and I actually enjoyed the interview more than I thought I would. I typically just don't enjoy other tech people because it's usually just bitching and moaning about different styles that all all solve the same solution. But no, I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. I think he was more on the sales marketing side. So maybe what you're not enjoying the tech people still is true.
It could be.
I love, and we talked about a hiring process. That's something that a lot of our members in the DMG have been talking about, and everything that's going on in the economy right now. A lot of people changing jobs. Some reports are saying 1 out of 4. Some are saying 50% of people are going to move. So I love how thorough his process is, and I think that's some takeaways for our audience. Just really getting a deep understanding of what their process is and what it can be to pull on the best candidates.
Well, what was the name of I know you wrote it down during the interview. What was the type of evaluation that he does?
I wrote it down. I think it was psychometric.
Yeah, something like that.
We'll get it.
I want to say that he, in the interview, made sure that it wasn't just like your typical, what is it? What's the typical test that's like a ENJT or something?
Myers-Briggs.
Yes, the Myers-Briggs. It's not like that, right?
I don't know. I have no idea. Because I think, what's the other one? There's the Myers-Briggs. And there's another one that does like the plotting and whatnot.
Right.
But see, I'm pretty sure, I got to check, that before you give certain tests, I think there's certain ones you can't, or you're discriminating of some respect. There's some type of thing in there. And maybe his test isn't that way. I know there's like a military one that you can give, but right. I'm pretty sure you can't give the Myers-Briggs or whatever the other one is, the driver influencer challenger.
It starts with D. And my sister's actually a certified trainer or teacher of that one, whatever. Oh, DISC. That's what it is.
Yes. DISC profiles. Thank you. Yeah.
Have you ever taken one of those?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your?
I can't remember. Yeah.
The only reason I remember mine is because it said
driver.
I'm the same as Steve Jobs.
I think he had DISC profile. He had Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like a ENJT or whatever, but it was the same exact one as Steve Jobs.
Was it really? Yeah. Which he never took one, that to my knowledge. So I think they just kind of.
Well, they're just saying the description of this.
Oh, really?
That like Steve Jobs.
Got it. Yeah. See, I don't know. I put a lot of stock in that. They'll put like Nelson Mandela in some, and whatever. Do they put like Charles Manson and like Hitler in some of them? I wouldn't really sell
a secret database somewhere.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've never taken a Myers-Briggs. I've taken a DISC profile. I took the online version. Is that what you're talking about? Like I've taken that online version.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, all right, yeah. But there's like, from what I understand, with the Myers-Briggs, there's this really in-depth version where you actually have like a facilitator, and they go to a whole nother level.
There's a company here in Jacksonville that they still exist, but they're like an eighth of the size they once were. Require that every single person in the organization had a master's degree and had to take a psychological profile to make sure that they would fit. And at first I was like, wow, they're really discerning, making sure that they only hired this specific person. But in the end, the company went down in flames over a bunch of corruption, and so I guess didn't really stop that company from imploding.
It sounds like they just created this homogenized work environment and culture. And I don't know if everybody was corrupt or if it just takes one person that's corrupt and nobody else able to figure it out.
It's the highest level. But it's funny. We've talked about this a lot, and it's not really related to this interview. But if you present yourself as an expert, most people are going to just assume that you're an expert. Right. So he creates this really complicated process, and all these people are like, wow, it's really exclusive to work here. So it's almost like a psychological game from the start of, you're blessed to be here. Yeah. You're lucky to be interviewing and making it to the next step.
Yeah. So, the exclusivity of it. I know there's some companies that some medical sales, medical product sales companies, they only hire college athletes. So yeah. But so speaking with people there that are college athletes, they say, oh, yeah, it's because of, the challenge it takes in sports, and they have all these things. It's all right, that's cool. I get it. You talk to some others, it is such a jock culture. It is. So you get both sides of it, right? Some people absolutely love it and some people absolutely hate it. But regardless, that creates homogenization. That's not diversity. That's not inclusion.
Well, I would imagine they do that because in their local markets, you can live off of your college days for 8 years after, because most athletes don't go on to the pros, right? But they still have that one game that they beat the state rival.
Yeah, Chet Wilkinson.
Right. So they're going to live off that fame for the next 8 years selling medical insurance or whatever it is.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, that very well could be. But I've literally spoken, and it's a husband and wife couple that I know that both work for this same company. Her perspective of it was that, it was a total jock show and she would never work there again. His is completely on the opposite. No, it's about camaraderie and, the brotherhood and sisterhood of sports.
Yeah.
But, and speaking of that, I think that was one thing to bring it back to this. Chris has developed a really strong culture by finding some of those great people, using these tests, pulling out the toxic people. And there's so much more in it than just that, but it's interesting that that's what we gravitated toward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our process is really simple. I don't have a very discerning, because I always look for training people. So I'm looking for, are they capable of being trained? And if the answer is yes, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is the ingredients and the minerals, right? So, okay, do they have what we believe what it takes? Looking at their past history, is it spotty? Not necessarily saying do they get in trouble when they were a kid, but are they jumping from job to job every 3 months, which we get into.
Absolutely. That's everyone's red flag, but that's my super red flag.
I've literally talked to people where they think they're the exception, where, I was just going to give them a second chance. A second chance? There's 9 job jumps. I mean, you're the 10th chance. You're not the exception. And that's one thing. Anybody listening, whether you're looking for a job or looking to hire, those are people that you're not going to be the exception. They're going to jump on you every single time.
Yep. And it's almost like, as the tech industry, I graduated, I think, in 2004. I was in my first job at 2004. And back then, you still had the impression that you had to build a nice, long, work resume with, big gaps. Like if it was a bunch of jumps, it was a taboo. But somewhere around 2010, lots of jumps didn't matter anymore. And people are just like, sure, yeah, we just, we'll hire you. And then, hopefully now it's, especially with the remote, hopefully employers go back to making that taboo again, because we're just going to encourage shitty employees, and everybody's complaining about shitty employees now. So we've allowed that. We've created the market that we hate.
I wonder how much of that has to do with venture capital and just growth, where you need to fill seats. You're going to do whatever it takes to create that surface level image necessary to speak to your investors.
Also, I think it was self-inflicted, because you've got all these venture capital, that hire all these people, and then 6 months, piss through all their funding, and then they're like, "Oops, sorry, everybody, goodbye." So then all these employees started going, "Well, screw you! I have no loyalty to you. You don't have loyalty to me. So somebody's offering me more money. I'm jumping."
Yeah, I also say around that time was the prime time with everybody trying to talk others into that investment side of the company. Like, oh, we're going to IPO. Actually, that goes all the way back to the .com bust, where everybody thought that they were going to get a big piece of this, taking really low salaries and then just getting slapped in the face.
The company that recruited me down here offered every developer, I think I was at the 4,000 share mark with a $1 strike price or something like that, $1.50 or $2, I don't know. And after a year, I got promoted, and then I hated the promotion. And then somebody came calling with, $25,000 more a year. So I jumped in, and everybody was like, "How could you do that? You're going to lose your shares." And I actually was smart enough to actually go and do market research and find out what their peers' valuation is, and did the math. And against my strike price, I was like, I'm not going to get anything out of this. And all I have to do is work a year and a half at $25,000 more a year to equal what that payout might be. Well, it turned out 4 years later, they got acquired by somebody for a purchase price of 95 cents a share, like literally 5 cents under 80% of all people's shares. So everyone expecting some big payout didn't get anything.
Didn't even get a dime?
Didn't get a dime. You would have lost money by exercising your options.
Wow.
How? And I laughed at it. I still had tons of friends working there, and I just was like, little giggle.
Did they? Oh yeah, a little Schadenfreude. Did they afterward? I don't know how this works. And when it goes over $1, like you still own those shares, though, right? Or are your shares gone?
Well, mine are gone because I didn't execute them a year after leaving.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had the option to execute them then, but again, you would have lost money in doing so.
Poor suckers. Hate seeing it, but it happens all the time.
So after that happened, so it was a really great story. I mean, somebody should turn this into a novel or something, but 2 competitors launched offices in Jacksonville, and a third of those employees went to one company, another third went, and a third stayed. So there was this huge shedding of talent, and these market competitors were smart, and they just set up offices and consumed all that, that relative experience.
And those companies still around?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Yeah, it sounds like it worked out.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. There's a pitch to the book, or it's just a really short novel, short story. Right. The other thing I liked about this episode, and that kind of potentially touches on it, is the consultative approach that he takes. That's something else that we take, where understanding the deficiencies with the people that you work for, your client, just trying to add as much added value to that is something that I don't think enough service companies do, especially when it's something that's being resold.
Yeah, I mean, there's always your value proposition, and that should sell itself, and it usually does. But in the times when you're not doing that, what else are you doing for your client that's adding value? Because you can't always be delivering code. There's or delivering websites. There's other things you have to do, or there might just not be an active project. So what do you do with that retainer? In the retainer model, you're expected to continually add value, and so his answers about doing that with his clients was great, and we should do more of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think we do when we can. It's just, and it's one of those things. You're with time, especially when it comes to the free added value things that you're going to have, you're betting on people, right?
Right.
You could say even HubSpot or any of these companies that have these programs that are going to train like a sales force up, they're betting. So the more success you show in that program, the more they're going to bet on you, the more they're going to invest on you. And I think it's the same way. Like there's certain clients where, we've gone into their office and told them like, all right, hey, this is how you should sell this, so on and so forth. There are others that I don't want to say are kicking puppies, but they just want like, give me the price. All right, let me see what I can do with this. And it's like, all right, we'll try to figure out how to work together. Yeah, we optimistic and believe in the future. And when it doesn't work out, it's like, okay, like there's nothing here. There's nothing we can show you at that point.
Right. And for one thing, I want to throw a little tease out there for anyone that's listening that might drop off before the interview. Chris talks about he works with tons of agencies, and he asked us, how much do you think an agency owner takes home at the end of the day? And we each had our guesses, and if you want to find the answer, or if you want to hear the answer to that, stay tuned.
Yep. And if you want to get closer to my number, join the DMG.
That's right.
Awesome. All right. I think that's a great tee up, everybody. Please enjoy this episode of The Climb. If you can, go ahead and review, like, share, comment. Any way to participate is greatly appreciated. And this is Chris Martinez from the Dude Agency. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Yeah, man. So I'd like to start with your climb. How did you get here?
Yeah, so I'm going to try and keep this brief because you told me to keep it brief. But basically, I have what I believe is an unconventional journey in the agency space, because I didn't grow up like being technologically inclined. And when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was kind of like a little hoodlum. So all my friends, we were getting in trouble, and best friend from middle school, he got really involved in gangs and he got killed right after high school. And all those kids from when I was at that time, they just kind of disappeared, which is also like, I think it provides me a unique perspective, because whenever I see troubled kids, I know that there's a good kid inside of them. Whereas a lot of people, I think, just write them off as just bad kids. In my opinion, there's no bad kids. Well, there are, but it's very, very small percentage. Anyways, I always did really well in school. So I got into a good university, UC Santa Barbara, and did well there. And that was what like really changed my perspective as to what was possible. So went to school there 5 years, graduated, got a job in sales. Fast forward a few years working in sales. I did really well in sales, and then decided I wanted to do something different. Tried a bunch of like little freelance things. My dad got sick with cancer in 2006. He died a month later, 3 days before my 27th birthday, January 10th, 2007. And then after that, I decided I wanted to start my first business, which was a soccer magazine. Didn't know anything about print publishing. It was the worst time in history to start a print magazine too. So I ended up failing at that, lost everything. Like one of those stories where, I couldn't pull $20 out of the ATM. And I was like grieving my dad's death, and I didn't know how to handle that. And I was completely broke, and I was angry all the time. That was my way that I grieved, is I was just angry. I wanted to fight everybody. And so I was isolated. I isolated myself, didn't have any friends. And I decided, you know what? I don't want to live like this. The choices that I had were either kill myself or try and get help. So I sought out a therapist, which was really, really scary at the time. And she saved my life. And then after that, started learning about websites and digital marketing, and decided I started working for a company called Reach Local, which did managed PPC. And that led to this idea for having an agency. And I started an agency in 2012. Grew that. And then in 2015, kind of like the big turning point for me in the agency was that I discovered that I could find talented designers and developers in Mexico, in Tijuana, Mexico specifically, because at the time I'm living in San Diego. And so I was like, Philippines team, I got rid of most of the Philippines team, kept a couple people on, but was mainly working with my Mexico team. And I was driving back and forth across the border like every day. And basically grew that agency. We had over 220 clients on retainer. And then in 2017, I was like, you know what? I think I can help other agency owners get access to this talent pool that nobody even knows exists. Most people don't even think that Mexico is an option for design and development. And so we started Dude, and basically started running Facebook ads, got our first clients, and then went to the traffic and conversion conference in 2018, got a booth there. We spent like 10 grand. Which at the time we were doing like 12 grand in revenue from Dude. And that was like, kind of like the spark that set us off on this crazy trajectory. And now we have clients all over the US and Canada. We've got over 90 staff, and company's doing really well. We did win an award last year, Minority Owned Business of the Year, from the American Business Association or something like that. It was a Stevie, and we got a second place for most innovative company under 100 employees. So that is my brief version of my story.
Right on. No, I appreciate you sharing. Sorry to hear about your dad, man. That had to be tough.
Yeah, it sucks.
No.
But if anything, it's given me a different perspective on something else. But now I've kind of, when people have had, parents die of cancer, or they have somebody who's gotten sick, like I've kind of been the go-to, because I was 26 when my dad died. So I was really young. I didn't have many friends who'd lost a parent, but now I'm, in my 40s, 41. And so parents, people have lost parents along the way. They've gotten sick. My fiance, her father died 2 years ago. Not from cancer, from diabetes, but, I've just kind of been this person that people can turn to now that kind of understands what it's like. And the other big thing that I'll say is, this is the best thing that I've ever done is, so in 2012, the same year that I started the agency, I got linked up with this charity in LA called Walk with Sally. And basically it was a mentorship program that paired up kids who had a parent sick or died of cancer with an adult mentor who had experienced something similar. And so I heard about the charity and signed up, became a mentor to Patrick. He was 13 at the time. And he was 13 at the time. His mom had been battling cancer, breast cancer, for 4 years. And so instantly he and I became like best friends. And then unfortunately, 5 months out after he and I got paired up, she died.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, you want to talk about hard, like try telling a 13-year-old kid and a 10-year-old kid that their mom's going to die in like a couple weeks. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the hardest thing, hardest conversation I've ever had to have, for sure. But, and she died December 8th, 2012. And it was a rough couple of years for Patrick, but, kids are so unbelievably resilient too. And so now he's a young man. And I'm actually going to his baby shower this weekend. He's having a baby, so
all right, man.
Exciting, yeah. So flying out to Vegas. Yeah, I mean, I'll be with that kid forever. I made a promise to his mom when she was still alive that I would always look after her kids. So that's part of my mission.
That's deep. No, that's fantastic.
I'm a deep guy, man. I believe in having a big purpose.
All right, I'm with it. All right, so let's get deep. Let's get deep into your business. You said the conference was the turning point for your agency. Like, what were you doing before that? Like, what are your sales strategies?
Facebook ads and referrals. So I developed a pretty big network, just being around and talking to agency people and stuff like that. And actually what gave me the courage to invest the money in that conference was that Digital Marketer put on a one-time only agency conference in Austin. It was kind of like spur of the moment. It was very cheap. It was only $250 for a ticket. I had a buddy who lived in Austin. So I was like, I'll come out. So I flew out to Austin. I got like a last minute flight. It was super cheap. It was like also like maybe like $180 or something like this. It was one of those things where the stars just aligned, So I buy the ticket, I stay with my buddy, and then buy the flight, right? And I start talking to people that are there, telling them about what I'm doing. And they're like, oh, that sounds really cool. Of course, like getting business cards and exchanging information and stuff. And like I said, we'd already developed a client base. I think we were doing around, it was between like 10 and 12 grand, I think, with Dude at the time. So I had some proof of concept, but now I wanted to go and I was like, test to see, because this audience was most likely going to be a traffic and conversion. So went there and talked to a bunch of people, and it was going really well. And then the best part was that one of the speakers at the event is a friend of mine now, his name's Frank Coel. And so he spoke there and he said that he was from Carlsbad or San Diego, California. I was like, oh man, I got to go meet him. So like they had a party, of course, that night, and I'm walking around trying to find Frank, and I can't find him anywhere. So then it gets late and I go to sleep. The next morning, I have a flight like 6 a.m. So I'm in the airport, Austin airport at 6 a.m. And who's there with me? Frank. And he's on my flight. So I just coincidentally go sit right next to him while we're both waiting at the gate. And I was like, hey, are you Frank? Did you speak at the event? And he's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh, cool. So we start chit-chatting or whatever, and then he starts asking me, oh, what do you do? And I was like, well, I started this agency, and then now we're helping other agencies get access to this talent pool down in Tijuana, Mexico. He's like, oh my God, I've always thought about that there has to be talent down in Tijuana. And so we start chit-chatting, and we're literally like, we're not on the plane. We're like 2 rows apart when we're on the plane, and we're continue talking, like kind of being assholes on the plane. But we exchange information. And I invite him down to come down, visit our facility, meet our staff, because we had this idea of having dedicated staff where they literally, like, they become a part of your agency, but we're the staffing agency that manages the payroll and all the benefits and everything, because we have a Mexican corporation. That's one of the biggest challenges to doing business in Mexico, is actually setting up the business. So I invited him down because they were looking for a few full-time people. And so he came down, he did a tour. It was absolutely amazing. We took him out to lunch and everything, did all the fun stuff. And then he ended up hiring a dedicated employee. Now, funny story about that day. Okay. So we had this crazy landlord at the time, right? So we had this office in Mexico, and the landlord was in a dispute with her ex-husband. And it was crazy because we had a lease agreement that had the husband's name on it. Exact same document, just said owner of the building is the husband. Our neighbors in the same building, our office neighbors, had the same contract, but with the wife's name on the contract. So they were arguing, saying, I'm the owner. And we're like, it's the same contract. Like, I don't know who the hell the owner is. Like, we're not paying either of you guys, because if we pay the wrong person, I highly doubt you're going to give that rent money to the other person. Right. So we're just sitting around like doing nothing. Meanwhile, the upstairs tenants had a call center, and they ran up an insane electric bill, like thousands of dollars on this electric bill, and they refused to pay. So then the electricity company comes and shuts the electricity off to the whole building. Right. So we got this crazy dispute with the owners, and then we got the crazy electricity thing going on. So we're like, it's the day before Frank is supposed to come down with his business partner, Joey. And I'd been working on setting up this meeting for, almost a month. And I was like, well, what are we going to do? So I'm like, do I cancel the meeting? Right? It's going to look so bad, right? They never say you never have a second chance to make a first impression. I'm like, it's going to look so bad if I have to cancel last minute, right? And they'd already moved stuff around too. And I was like, we got to figure this shit out. So we run an extension cord. The owner, the woman owner, she also owned the apartment building next door. So we ran an extension cord from her apartment to our office. And we had, at the time we only had I think 6 employees. So we had everybody sitting at their desk, but we only had 2 computers actually hooked up. And there was an extension cord with a splitter going into the different rooms that were going to the different working computers. So we had it all choreographed. We pulled this whole thing together in 2 hours the day before. And we said, okay, so we're going to come in. All you guys are going to pretend like you're working, except for this person and this person are going to have their computer on. And we're going to do a demo and show the work that you guys do on these 2 computers only. So everybody else is just playing along. Frank and Joey have no fucking clue what's going on. And the thing went off flawlessly. So that we were in there, in and out in less than 30 minutes. So it's probably more like 15 to 20 minutes. We're in and out. And then everybody literally leaves the office and then goes to continue working at home. And then so we took Joey and Frank out to lunch. Everything went great. They ended up hiring Deanna. It was our first dedicated employee that we have. Now that program does hundreds and thousands of dollars a year. But it was just amazing. It was one of those times where I was like, we just got to figure this shit out. We can't give up. We're so freaking close. Yeah. And we made it work. And so that was really, really cool.
Good on you for pulling it all together with that, man. Now, how did you find the agency in Tijuana, and how do you scout, talent now?
How did I find the agency?
Or that's what I'm saying. How did you put together the team? You said there was this pool out there. Did you find one person, say, hey, do you got your friends? What did that look like as you began to put this together?
So definitely it was a work in progress, because the culture down in Mexico is very, very different than in the United States. There's a lot of little nuances that are very different. The laws are way different. The tax codes are way different. And so I actually had a partner that I opened up the company in Mexico with. The original plan is that we were going to try and replicate my agency in the States down in Mexico. Didn't work, mainly because they don't have automatic billing in Mexico. You literally have to manually process credit cards every single month. There's some companies that do it, but you have to be doing a lot of volume. So at that time it didn't work. So, but I ended up having these really good people that I eventually found. The first people that we found them off Craigslist. Well, it was a designer that we found off Craigslist. Word of advice, never ever use Craigslist to hire people, at least in Tijuana, Mexico. So the first guy, designer, seemed like a good guy. And then he brought along his friend who was a sales guy. Both of them ended up not working out. But we ended up finding a couple more people through Craigslist. And then eventually we had this team. It was anywhere between like 6 to 7, I think. And it was like, we started using another website called Empleo Nuevo because one of the gals who we hired said, hey, you should look on this website. So we used that one, and it's just evolved over time. So now my fiance works with me now, and she does our HR. She runs our HR department as well as our finance department. And so now we're mainly using LinkedIn. So we pay a shitload of money to LinkedIn for their recruiting platform. It's amazing. We've hired so many great people through there. We also had a lot of luck with Indeed. Indeed worked out really well. At least in Mexico, it's definitely one of the top platforms. But those are the two main ways that we're finding individuals to work with us.
Got it. Now, what is your capacity and scalability? Do you have like dead weight, or are you always, just hiring for the job? What does that look like?
So in terms of like planning, so we do a pro forma at the beginning of the year, and then it gets reviewed every quarter and revised. And so basically I say, hey, here's the sales objectives. This is how we're going to get there. Our business is a little bit unique in the sense of an agency, because our deliverables our product is essentially our people, right? Mm-hmm. So when we bring on a certain amount of clients, then we know that we need a certain amount of staff. Right. So when we hit certain sales targets, we're basically prior to that, we're backfilling seats. And what's great about our hiring process is that we can turn it on and turn it off kind of like a marketing funnel. Right. So if we need, or if we anticipate that we're spending a shitload of money on ads now, and that's going to pay off in, I think our sales cycle right now is 55 days. Right. So let's say we put a ton of money into ads. We start generating leads, and then on average, those deals are going to close in 55 days. Well, we know it only takes us about a week or two to get people up to speed and actually producing. But we know that hiring funnel, actually, it takes about 2 weeks from start to finish when we hire somebody. So as long as we're 4 weeks ahead of schedule, we're okay. So we just kind of, it's a balance. It's an art as well. And the other big thing is like we have project managers, but we call them pod leaders. So they have an 8-week training program. So that's the other big one, is like now that we have that process mapped out, it's a lot easier for us to turn up the sales and bringing in new clients, and we don't have to worry about that as much.
Gotcha. So you have would you say 55 days before you bring on a new client? You have it takes you 2 weeks to spin something up, so you can see it coming down the path, and you're hiring to fulfill that job as you see it getting closer.
Yeah, we're constantly hiring people, especially because, we have 2 products for the most. Well, actually, we have 3. So our newest one is called Dude to Go, and that's a one-off service. But historically, we've always sold a subscription, so the clients get access to a team of people. It's a shared team, and typically the clients, get anywhere from 150 to 200 hours of design and development support a month. We don't cap it, but that's the sweet spot that we know. We track everything, so we track number of projects, hours per project, who's doing what. And so we know that if they're in that 150 to 200 hours, that's the sweet spot where they're getting the deliverables and the ROI, and they're really happy. If they start to go above that, then we'll talk to them about the dedicated employee program. That's where we'll allocate 1, 2, 3. We have some people that have like six dedicated staff just with us. Now, the cost savings on that compared to the States is anywhere from 50 to 70% cheaper than somebody in the States. In my opinion, I believe that our staff work harder and they have much better attitudes. So it's not just the cost savings. It's like you have somebody who actually appreciates having a job and really sees your company as the dream job and not just the stepping stone. And I don't know if you guys are doing any hiring right now, but there's bigger companies that are coming in and swooping up staff and just paying outrageous salaries to take these people from you. So it can be really challenging.
We've actually talked about that on quite a few episodes about now that this remote, everyone's remote now.
Yeah.
Small agencies used to win the talent war with culture. And, that team atmosphere was better than the corporate world. Now that's all gone. Yeah. And, these big, the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Googles are coming in with these 6-figure offers and people are bouncing because they're still going to work at home. But we did just read an article that, there's a wave of resignations coming for companies that do expect people to go back into the office. So I think those corporate, bigwigs are going to kind of shoot themselves in the foot as well.
Yeah, we'll see. The bottom line is that everything's getting shaken up. And right. So it is going to be more challenging for agencies to retain talent because maybe you go work at Google and they pay you a little bit more, but you get to say you work for Google. Right. There's still some prestige to the name. In general, there's a talent shortage of like people who have the soft skills and the technical skills in the United States. Well, I think globally as well. But in the United States, I think it's really hard to find the folks that have both of those skill sets that we need and that we can afford. So the benefit of that is that now, because everybody's working remote and you've probably been forced to create better SOPs to manage a remote team, you now have access to a global talent pool, right? If you're not using global talent, you absolutely should, because I always say that you can always find the right person at the price you can afford. You just have to get a little bit creative. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the hell we were talking about.
It's free flowing, no worries. Yeah. So what is the level of talent that you have on your team? Is it all the way from senior engineer down to intern?
So our agencies that we work with, they typically, they work with SMBs, and the project usually starts off with a website, right? So we have designers that'll create the mock-ups for them. Once the mock-ups get approved, well, the agencies usually send us wireframes, right? They do the onboarding with the client. They have a process for that. Create wireframes. Wireframes get approved. Send it to us. We do the designs, the mock-ups. Send the mock-ups back to the client or to the agency. Agency gets them reviewed, gets them signed off, and then we'll start the development. I would say that about 80% of our agencies are using a theme like something like Elementor Pro or something like that. It's pretty nimble, not slow. And so we'll build it on Elementor Pro. We do have like another 20% that are doing like full custom WordPress sites. We personally do not do a lot of back-end development. It's just not our client's profile. Like our agencies are typically not doing that. It's mainly like, website needs to go up. There's content, there's an opt-in, there's a follow-up sequence, there's landing pages, then there's traffic, right? And so all the little things that they would send over to a designer or a developer, they send to our team now. So that can be on the design side, it can be display ads for retargeting, it can be social media graphics, it can be ebooks, whatever it is. On the digital, well, actually we do print design too, but design wise, they can send that to us. On the development side, obviously websites, then we have landing pages and funnels, updates and changes to existing sites. So site speed improvements are like a big thing right now that we have a lot of agencies that are sending to us. So they'll do the GT metrics or the Google page speed, whatever, send it to the team and they say, hey guys, I need you guys to, get this better. And then we go down the list. Yeah, make it faster.
Not the best, just better, right?
Yeah.
So do you work with direct clients? Or just
No,
agencies?
only with agencies. Yeah, we only work with agencies.
Really? If one comes in, would you just refer them to an agency?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do that pretty often. Yeah.
Oh, right on. And with as far as where was I going with that? We can edit that part out. Actually, when it comes to design and marketing, do you have like a difference there? Like, do you have marketing team, or is it just design and development? For instance, you have SEO, do you have paid search, and all those types of different tools?
No, we don't do well on page SEO. We do, and paid search. I mean, we like set up landing pages and install tracking pixels and stuff. But no, we don't do any of the strategy. Like we found that our agencies clients, they're awesome at sales and they're awesome at creating the strategy for their client. Right?
Mhm.
They all struggle with the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
So if they brought in 50 clients, like they could do the first part of it, they can onboard them, right? And then they don't know how to get the work done. And that's really where we come in, is we give them this team of people that's going to help them get all these projects completed. Most of the agencies that come to us, they have a backlog of projects already on deck because they're like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. And then now like all their projects are behind schedule and their clients are pissed off and they're like, please help me. So we come in and we help them with that. The other big thing that we do is, and this, we kind of fell into this as well, is on processes, right? So I would argue that most agency owners, well, in my opinion, you have three types of agency owners. So you have the sales guys who just see the business opportunity and they're like, I can sell a bunch of these things, right? They don't have any clue on how projects actually need to get done. And maybe they don't know a whole lot about design or development. Then you have designers who are very, very creative, right? Way more talented than me. But sometimes they struggle on business development and they also struggle on operations. And then you have developers, also incredibly intelligent. Oftentimes they struggle with design and they also can struggle with operations and finance, right? Running the business. None of those folks are necessarily great at developing processes. And especially at scale. And that's something that we do that's really, really good is we've always, me personally, like my brain is just wired for efficiency and operations and process. And so we've always done that really well internally. So we teach our agencies now how to be more efficient. So one of the things that we had created this year was what we call our process mapping and process auditing. So we sit down with our clients and we map out, what are the steps that you are taking to build out a website, for example? So they're saying, we do this and we do this. I'm telling you, every agency is different. The end result is usually the same. The steps that they take to get there, everybody is different. But guess what? Nobody talks to each other, so nobody has a clue that their process is the only one like that on the planet, right? So we have to understand that. And then we'll actually say, okay, how many hours are you budgeting for this? You'd be surprised as to how many agencies don't ever think about that, right? So we're like, okay, 8 to 10 hours, right? And then, so about a month later, we'll go back to the client. We'll say, hey, you thought that this stage of the project was going to take 10 hours, and it ended up taking 15, right? You thought that we were going to have 2 revisions. We ended up having 4, right? So here's how you can fix those things. Or if you don't want to fix it, then you got to raise your prices because you're not accounting for that time. Even though we're a flat rate service, you need to be mindful of your time. And so we'll help them streamline their operations and basically help them to get stuff done faster. Because if you're more efficient, you can have the same people producing more work because there's less inefficiencies, there's less blockages.
So is that a service you're charging for? Is this process mapping?
It's included.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we do charge it, but we've been waiving it for the past couple months.
No, hey, that's cool. You're memorializing it, showing them that there's a value there. We've worked with agencies for years as well, and there's good agencies to work with and bad agencies to work with. What are the things that you see with a bad agency where you're like, okay, you guys have to get your shit together?
Well, I think for whatever reason, there's the breaking point is in the revenue, right? So like if you have an agency that's typically over $1 million in revenue, they're doing a lot of things right already. Some of the most challenging people are the ones who are under 100 grand, which is why we don't work with those people. In my personal opinion, the biggest challenge is the owner and their ego, right? So like if you've gotten kicked in the teeth enough, you kind of lose your ego and you have to get kicked in the teeth enough to get to that at least like $500,000 range in revenue. And then you start to be a little bit more humble, and you recognize that there's a lot of things that you don't know and that you're open to changing. And so a lot of the things that we talk to our agencies about, they're just like sponges, right? They want to absorb all the best practices that they never ever learned. Because at that point, like at the beginning, you're just trying to like just keep the lights on, right? You want to take in as much revenue as you can. Maybe you're not niched yet. And so you kind of trial by fire. So you're learning as you go. And then eventually you start to learn how to close deals, and hopefully you have a niche. And by that time you recognize like sales is actually easy. Like this whole operation stuff and actually being profitable on these projects, that's really freaking hard. And nobody's ever taught me how to do that. And so when they come to us and they recognize like, hey, like, you're like, oh, they're talking about what a gross margin is and like what cost of goods is and like how to do the pro forma and like all these non-sexy things of running an agency that I suck at or that I never learned. Like this is the missing piece. And that's what's going to help them go from 500 to 2 million, 3 million in revenue.
Got it. And you bake those in. So I think it's fantastic that you show people, you know, how to do that. Is that your project managers? Like who on your team is responsible for executing the mapping and essentially you're consulting?
Customer experience team. Yeah, we have an entire customer experience team that makes sure that the agencies are progressing the way that they want to. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, your goal of that deliverable, if you will, is to make sure that their projects are profitable.
We want their entire agency to be profitable. I mean, how much, based on your experience, how much money do you think that agency owners, your average agency owner, how much money do you think he's making? He or she is making
themselves? Probably around 100 grand.
I would say it's lower than that. I would probably say it's between 60 and 80. In my opinion, it's not enough. Like they got to be making way more because this business is just so unbelievably hard.
I think there's too many people in this business. I think.
It's way oversaturated.
Yeah. Everybody with a laptop can be a competitor. The barriers to enter are none. There are no standards, right? There's only something on the greenest side, which are awards to build, you know, a trust in there. But and it's not that I'm trying to tell people, you know, don't get into this business, but don't get into this
I say that. Don't get into this business unless you know what you know what's crazy, and I was thinking about this the other day, is that in most every other industry, you build your company's infrastructure before you go to market, or you kind of dip your toe in the water and start to test things. In our industry, the kind of the mantra is just go out there and sell and you'll figure it out later.
Absolutely. Fake it till you make it.
How ass backwards is that? Like, do you think that Elon Musk just started? Well, Elon Musk, like they had some infrastructure. They're testing out the Hyperloop before they're selling tickets. Right? Like,
but the difference is, you know, agencies aren't funded. They don't have capital, you know, raises. They don't have venture capital that's funding them. It's usually just somebody with a laptop starting, you know, so that's the model. I mean, because I you know, our agency has been built 100% in that, and it still is, you know, we're not going to build up the infrastructure until we get the sales in.
Too many people though, don't even know how to complete the projects.
You're right.
Right.
Sure.
They digital agency services is like the easiest thing that you can sell. I'm telling you. And if you can get results for the clients, you'll have so many customers that you don't ever have to run an ad in your life. But too many people are getting out there and they're saying the right things, you know, but they don't actually know how to get the projects done. And then the clients get burned, like legitimately burned, and then it ruins it for everybody else.
Totally, man.
Because your clients see you is just that, you know, one of those marketing guys, those digital marketing guys that rip me off, right?
But I think those people create customers for us because we've gone through. So I mean, when people compare us to like a contractor that they can just get off of, you know, Upwork or whatnot, I'm like, that's a whole different life. There's no reliability there.
Yes.
If you want a professional, you know, team that has all the processes in place, that has reliability and redundancy, that's when you come to us.
Absolutely.
And so when they get burned, they're coming to us and they're a lot more agreeable, I think, because they're valuing
They have
like
the
the same as
context
us.
of comparison, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
I think you have to sift through, and it'll create scar tissue. And during the sales process, so there's two buckets, right? There's the real people that just got burned, and then there's just the people that they just want a deal. They're always going to go with the bottom barrel of the price. They're a sucker. They're going to continually get tricked. There's this. I was speaking with a guy the other day, and it was for a website, right? We're looking at potentially a $15,000-$20,000 website. He said, "Well, there's this guy that said he could do it for $400." I was like, well, man, what are you talking to? Are you talking to a guy, between bong rips? But I mean, you're talking to a company, right? Like, we pay taxes, and there's this whole structure there. So I think it always falls into those two buckets, right? Are they just a sucker, and they're continually looking for, that best deal that really doesn't exist? Or is it the other side where they just got burned?
Yeah. No, it's legitimate, and it does create opportunities. I like that attitude, actually. It's the same thing with me. Like, people say, well, I can go to India and I can find somebody for $4 an hour, or Philippines for $250. I'm like, go for it. Like,
yeah,
you're not my customer.
Yeah, what does like the global map look like in pricing? Are those prices you just said real?
Oh man. Well, actually, it really depends on the skill set. So there's a global shortage of custom WordPress developers right now, as well as e-commerce developers. Shopify developers, you can't find them anywhere, or they're really expensive. But I mean, Philippines, I think it's around like $5 or $6 an hour. India is getting up there. It's like in the $8-9 an hour.
As our middle class continues to grow or something.
Quality, it's just supply and demand. Like the biggest hurdles are finding the people that have the soft skills again, right? That understand that their work has an impact on an end customer. There's a lot of people who just want to sit bang on the computer all day, and they're like, you give me the project and I'll just do my technical thing and then just leave me alone, right? That doesn't work, at least for our company culture. Like, all of our team, we need them to have a sense of obligation to our customers and to our customers' customers. They have to see that there's a line that goes from you to this person having food on their table. And if you screw up, you're ultimately jeopardizing the dream of this small business owner who hired this agency, and that agency hired us. And then when you do a great job, that creates more job opportunities for the other team members that have yet to be hired by us, right? So like, finding that person who gets it and who cares and who gives a shit, that's really, really hard.
Yeah, and I think that
we know how to do that really
component. Well. Right? That's the hardest thing to find. Somebody that, I think it's a combination, right? Somebody that cares and somebody that can connect dots. Mm-hmm. Because like you said, if you just give that person the task and they're like, boom, 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 well, there's no critical thinking. They're not looking at how everything connects. And I like the way that you do it. You go all the way to like the kids eating, cereal in the morning. Yeah. Where I think in the project, it's just like, dude, that header doesn't make sense because it has toasters and this company is selling underwear. Right? Yeah. Like those two things, like, how did you not see that there was a mix up somewhere else?
Right. I agree. Yeah. So we do a really good job of finding those folks. We have a very lengthy hiring process.
Yeah. What is that process?
Yeah, cool. So I'll just take you from start to finish. We'll walk through it with the developer, right? So developers are notoriously difficult to work with.
The developer.
Yeah. So basically, we run a job post, right? So we use LinkedIn for the most part for our recruiting. Somebody applies to that job. In the job post itself, we have very specific instructions. Simplest one, if you're listening, say, put your resume in a PDF format and then have the subject line be this, right? You will be shocked as to how many people can't do that. I would say 80%. 80% of applicants can't do those things, right? If they pass that, then the next step is we give them an online kind of like questionnaire, right? So we email them, we say, hey, here's these questions, please get back to us. Part of that is usually send us 3 of your favorite websites that you've developed, WordPress websites that you've developed. We check all the links, right? So obviously there's a quality standard that we're looking for. You'd be shocked as to how many people send dead links. Or the website's bad, right? The website's gone. or there's typos, right? So we look at that, but we're not just looking at the responses. We're also looking at how quickly they're responding. With us internally, I think it's 72 hours. If they don't respond within 72 hours, automatic, we discard that person. And a big mindset thing when you're doing your interview process is that you're actually trying to disqualify people in the process, trying to make people not make it through. So once they pass that questionnaire, then we do a phone interview, 15 minutes. We ask the questions, same questions, everybody. And basically, we're just getting a sense for how they communicate. You'd be surprised as to how many guys are assholes to women on the call. It's shocking. Obviously, those people automatically.
You mean dudes?
These aren't dudes. These are bad people. These are dickheads. Dudes versus dickheads. So basically, if they pass that, then we move them to a online technical test. We use a service called Test Dome, and it's the same test. And basically, they have to write code or whatever. And so we see how they do on that. If they pass that, then we'll give them an actual like WordPress site to develop. All of this is unpaid, by the way. Wow. I see a lot of people like that are wanting to pay people to do this. Yeah. I don't think that you should pay people. That's just my personal belief. If you want to pay them, that's great. But we want them to like go through all these steps on their own, right? We want them to have that desire to work for our company where they're willing to invest this time, right? So they do the one-page site or like a two-page site, and they have a deadline. If they miss the deadline by 1 second, we discard that candidate.
Wow.
The next thing is, well, I mean, is hitting deadlines important to your business?
Right.
Yeah, we'll give them a minute, but the second, I mean,
no, it's got to be a second. I don't give a shit.
Right.
So, yeah, so they have to hit that deadline, and then if they pass that, we give them a psychometric exam. And this is the thing that I don't think many other companies do. But the psychometric exam, if you've never heard of it before, it basically measures their IQ, their reasoning, their values, and their values in relation to the company and the position. So it's looking for
legal to do. Is that a difference between hiring in Mexico and the States? Because I think there's.
No, you can do it in the States.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I learned about it from Redalio. So that's one of the things that they do, right?
Yeah, principles.
So, yeah, that book, actually, exactly. So we do the psychometric exam. It takes about 3 hours to complete it. So it's very, very intense. Then after that, I'll give you a psychometric profile of that individual, and it tells you from an empirical standpoint, where are their red flags in relation to this particular position and your company. So you can essentially create your company culture inside of the psychometric profile. So if you're, really, well, us, for example, like we are absolutely obsessed with deadlines. And so if this person has a deficiency in their ability to hit deadlines, or that's just not the way that their brain works, it's probably somebody that we're going to discard. It's not only going to be unhappy for us, it's not going to be a good experience for us. They're going to be miserable too, right? So like, why would we want to hire them? So if they pass the psychometric exam, then we bring them into a multi-person interview. Each person asks them a separate set of questions. We usually break it up between like technical skill, values, cultural fit, something else. I can't remember. I don't do the interviews anymore. But then all four of those people have to agree that this is somebody that they would want on their team, and it's somebody that they would like to work for one day if that were to happen. Every single person has to agree to those two questions. If anybody says no, or if anybody sees any red flags, automatically disqualify that candidate. And then once we agree, then we make the offer.
One of the questions we like to ask, and I really focus and harp on it, is, are you comfortable with the agency world? Because there's a big difference between a corporate developer that is going to work on one project, one site for 6 months, and an agency developer. Because some people just aren't built for that. I'm like, your head's got to be on a swivel. You're going to be working on 4 projects, every day. Is that something you want to do? Because so many, especially if they come from the corporate world, they want 2 months to get something done. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works anymore.
I think that most people, especially if they're looking for a job, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm totally okay with that. The beauty of the psychometric test is it'll actually, well, and the other technical tests too, is that you actually get to see how they'll perform. In the psychometric, you can't really lie on that. Like that's just who you are as a person. And it also is relatable to your agency. So like when you say like, are you like going to be happy in the agency environment? Your agency environment is probably much different than a lot of other agency environments. So you can kind of or you can define what that culture is for your company. And then when they take the psychometric exam, it'll basically compare and make sure that they're going to be a good fit for your specific agency, which is pretty neat.
What does your hiring funnel look like? So the people that, let's say, get the email signature or email subject line right, all the way
hire, it's like 1 out of 42.
Okay.
Wow.
From that part, or the email scenario? I don't even know.
From I believe it's from the questionnaire. It's 1 out of 42. It's 2%.
Okay. Wow. And you do all that within 2 weeks, or is it 2 weeks once you have that one, and then
it's 2 weeks. Yeah. I mean, we have 3 full-time recruiting staff, so that's all they're doing.
Yeah. Smart. No,
it's a very dialed in process.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's worth it, right? Especially if you're a smaller agency and you don't have a lot of staff, you don't want to have a lot of staff. One person can make or break your company. In general, one person, like I think we've all hired bad hires or people that we wish we didn't hire. And just the collateral damage from having that person around, then like that cancerous, toxic environment they can create. I mean, I still feel it from a team member that we ended up having. Well, he actually quit, but we were pushing him out the door. That individual he would intimidate and scare people. That was his way of making himself to feel important. And so he would discourage people from taking on more responsibility within the company. And it took a long time to overcome that. Once he was gone, though, immediately, things got better, but there were still residual things that we had to overcome because of the damage that he did. But in the end, we learned from it. We just know the importance of hiring the soft skills first and making sure that we have the correct personality profile that's going to be great in the company. And, hats off to my fiance for recognizing that and helping to fix that problem. Because
so what was the turning point with that? Right? Because there's tons of people listening. Her.
Oh, dude, you want to talk about like ego? Like I suck at that. Like I suck at HR. I suck at finance. I'm not very good at customer experience. And so I just realized that I had to pull myself out of those roles because I was the problem, right? Mm-hmm. And I had to break it to you. If you're the owner, you're always the problem. Just accept it. Not the end of the world. And then move to fix those issues. Usually, maybe it means putting somebody into the role that's going to be a better fit than you. I had to come to terms with myself because my friend Russ, who runs Design Pickle, he was like, this is the different departments that you have in your company. Give yourself a score, 1 to 10, 10 being the best. How are you in these different departments? I was like 0, 1, 2. And it's just like a light bulb moment where I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense why we're struggling here. It's because I suck. It's okay. I don't have a problem saying that I suck at things. I know that I suck at a lot of things.
How are you on deadlines?
I'm amazing at hitting deadlines on most things. Well, we all have those deficiencies in certain areas, right?
Yeah.
So like for me, for example, like let's just take it from a totally different category. Let's say working out, right? I love to work out hard. I will work myself to death. I can lift weights until my arms feel like they're going to fall off. I can push through so much physical pain, but I fucking love candy. Like I will go through a bag of Sour Patch Kids in like 30 seconds. That's just something that I'm not good at. So like for me to control that, I have like right now I'm trying to cut weight for a fight that I have coming up. And so for me to lower or reduce my calorie intake and get my weight down, I have to just remove any of those things from my.
What kind of fight?
Jiu-jitsu. I got a jiu-jitsu tournament coming up in 2 weeks.
God.
No, 9 days.
Yeah.
I don't have to lose that much weight. I have to lose like another 3 pounds.
And that's just grappling. You guys are going to be punching each other in the head, or is that also a part of it?
No, I did a lot of that when I was a kid. I'm good. I'm good on that side. No more punches to the face.
How do you? Yeah. Is there anything from you taking jiu-jitsu over into the agency world?
Absolutely. There are so many valuable lessons. So I grew up playing soccer, right? That was one of the things that saved me when I was a kid, is I was a pretty good soccer player. So I was playing competitively every weekend. So I was training like 4 days a week, getting into trouble for 3 days a week. And that's the only thing that saved me, in my opinion. So being an athlete, like I learned a lot about teamwork and perseverance and sacrifice, right? And then when I stopped playing, when I went to college, I didn't play in college. It's one of my only regrets from college. But I stopped playing, and then I really missed that camaraderie side of it. And then I started doing jiu-jitsu in 2018. So I'm still new. Like I don't think I'm good. Just very intense.
Nonsense. We're rooting for you, buddy. We hope you beat up that other guy.
So yeah, I'll probably have 3 fights, I think. But yeah, so the thing about jiu-jitsu is that, like you step on the mat for the first time, and I never had a wrestling background, nothing. Like you are getting manhandled by, I'm 200.
Literally. It's a man handling you.
I'm 217 pounds today because I literally just stepped on the scale right before this call. I'm 217 pounds. I got destroyed by dudes who were like 130, right? Like just couldn't do anything, like can't breathe, like people sitting on my chest, and I'm just like, ah. So it's a very humbling experience, right? You learn that there's like your size doesn't mean anything. If anything, my strength it hurts me because I rely more on my strength than my technique. And so you just learn that like it's okay to be shitty and that you're going to get your ass kicked every single day. But eventually over time you start to get a little bit better, and then like things start to work. But the other frustrating thing is that sometimes you progress, and then like 2 weeks later, you're like, fuck, I'm not hitting that anymore. Like what happened? And it can just be because you're going against a different opponent and their body shape is different. Obviously their skill levels are different. So it's just constantly learning to accept that there's challenges, and that, like you just got to keep doing it. You just got to keep going. You just got to keep persevering. It's okay to get your butt kicked. What matters is that you just keep showing up.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the biggest lessons that I've learned from jiu-jitsu. I think
I can see a parallel even with the size, right? The size of a company, the size of a person, right? That can be used against you, right? And I think that's one of the simplest things. Maybe that's more of a judo concept.
No, jiu-jitsu is the same. I mean, it's basically the same concept. If you look at the original Gracies who started Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they're small. Like the original Helio Gracie, he was a tiny little guy. I mean, I only seen pictures of him.
Royce Gracie. When I used to watch UFC back in the day, before there was like a fight on every day, I remember. Yeah.
Actually,
some of the most boring fights, though. I was like, dude, just get up, get off the ground.
The first
humping each other, guys.
Yeah, I remember watching the first UFC, and those kids. The first Gracie Academy is in Torrance, California, which is where I'm from, and Royce's kids, I think, went to school with me. My brother's 3 years younger than me. So there was one of them, his name was, Hexun. And he was a little gangster kid with us. He ended up, I think he overdosed on drugs a few years after high school. But they, I love that story. I wish that they would tell it more, because they were just a normal immigrant family just trying to make it, in California, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wasn't a thing until the late 90s, right? Like UFC was 93 or 94. I think it was 94, the first UFC. And then people started to take notice of like, what's this martial art where like these dudes are wearing these white pajamas and they're kicking the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And they got this weird way to they got this weird stance. Hey, dude, it's effective. It's a great self-defense.
I know, but from a fight standpoint, and granted, I was speaking through the eyes of, I don't know how old I was at the time, like 12, 14-year-old kid. It was just, one of those things that I think that's actually why I stopped watching it, is because and granted, it is effective, but I just, thinking about the blood sport of like Jean-Claude Van Damme or something, like that's why.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, my idols.
No, it's not as exciting to watch on TV, but if I would encourage everybody to study it for at least a year, just from a self-defense standpoint, because if somebody comes up to you and, like, I don't know if you guys have ever gotten into a bar fight, but it's typically, like two dudes start yelling at each other. Maybe there's some pushing, and then out of nowhere, somebody throws like a sucker punch, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
that person's either going down right away, or eventually that fight is going to go to the ground. And like when you see, like for example, like if you've ever gotten knocked on the ground and somebody's trying on top of you, of course they're going to try and punch you in the face, right? And the immediate thing that the person on the bottom does is they'll put their hands up like this, right? It's like the worst thing that you could possibly do. So you just have to understand that, like, hey, this shit is happening and this is what I need to do to at least neutralize the fight, right? And then get the hell out of there. So I think it's an amazing martial art, and you can do it well into your 60s. Like you don't have to, like, getting punched in the face. You can't do that for very long.
One of the lessons I always had from wrestling from back in high school is control the hips, control the man.
Yeah, absolutely. So
same thing in football too. Go for the hips. You'll always tackle them.
So the one thing that wrestlers struggle with apparently in jiu-jitsu is wrestlers are okay giving up their back, but they also hate being on the ground. They hate having their back on the ground. Whereas you can be in a very advantageous position if you're on the ground, if you have the person like in your guard. But wrestlers will give up their back and then they get choked out, and then they don't come back. But it's a great martial art.
I think it's fantastic. I don't want you to think I was hating on it. I mean, when I was a kid, I think I was in like Taekwondo and kickboxing. So those are the things that appealed to me. A couple last questions before we start wrapping up. One is, what do you think agencies, could do today or aren't doing today that they should be doing? What would make a better agency?
There's many, many things. Okay, let's start from the top. Leaders need to invest more in learning how to become better leaders. That's the biggest deficiency that I'm seeing now in agency owners, is that they're still in the freelancer type of mindset. And if you start running a team, like this is something that I like to tell all agencies or agency owners, is that the agency is a reflection of you personally. Right. So if you have all this baggage going on in your head, or you don't feel like you're good enough, or you have the imposter syndrome, or you're angry at somebody for something that somebody did to you when you were a kid, whatever that is, that shit comes out in the business. If you're disorganized, for example, or you don't know how to communicate effectively, or you're always fearful that you're going to lose money, whatever, that's going to come through in the business. And so you need to really focus on improving yourself, and then it will be reflected in the business. So we have a thing that also something that I learned from Russ at Design Pickle, where it's, you got to work on your physical health first. If your physical health sucks, it's really hard for you to be the best version of yourself in the company. So once you have that mapped out and that's going well the way that you want, whatever that means to you, it doesn't mean you have to be a bodybuilder or do jiu-jitsu or whatever. As long as your physical health is in good condition, mental health is next. How's your mind, right? Are you anxious? Are you calm? Like we know that if you're stressed out all the time, that can literally kill you. Like you can have hypertension, have a heart attack, you can die, so we know that your mental health can impact your physical, but it'll also come through in the business. So if you're stressed out all the time, you're probably not the best boss, right? People might not want to be around you because they're like, oh shit, like need to avoid this person. So you got to make sure that your mental health is in order, whether that means simply meditating every day, like something that I do, doing your journal, going to a therapist, whatever it is, you need to focus on your mental health. The third thing is your relationships with other people. Now, I don't have a huge circle. I don't have a big family. I have a very small circle of people that I really care about. And so I make a conscious effort to maintain those relationships, even if like it means just like phone call once a month. Like one of my goals is I have 2 aunts that are left that are alive. I want to talk to them every month, right? Just talking on the phone for an hour once a month, right? That's a big deal. That helps to strengthen those relationships. Obviously, I'm getting married, so I have my fiance, so I care about her. And then the third part is the business side of it, and that's not just like let's see how many sales we can close this month. It's what are you personally doing as a leader, as an owner, as an entrepreneur, to improve your skills as an owner, right? And I'm not talking about learning about how to run an ad or any of that shit. It's like the actual leadership side of it. If you can do those things, if you can develop those habits and you can do those things every single day, I promise you, it will be positively reflected in the business and you'll grow much faster than if you hadn't. So that's like the main thing that I see that I want owners to focus on is improving themselves with the understanding that the business is a reflection of me. So if there's a problem in the business, it goes back to me personally. Being willing to invest in that side of yourself. That's the first thing. The second thing is just getting really good at managing the operations. So recognizing and tracking your cost of goods, making sure that you're hitting the right margins, working on a financial plan so that you can actually grow this. All the non-sexy shit. Everybody wants to sell. Everybody wants to do the strategy sessions. Everybody likes to, or a lot of people like to have their ego stroked by speaking on stages or whatever. They want the awards, which those things are important. Don't get me wrong. Like sales is important, obviously. But it's those other non-sexy things where like I can look at a business. If you show me your numbers, I'll look at 6 things and I can pinpoint with precise accuracy as to why you're not making more money personally as the owner or why your agency's stuck, right? I see a lot of agencies that come in and they're plateaued, right? Churn rates are too high. Maybe they're charging too little. They're usually, most of the times they're paying way too much for the projects that they're bringing in, right? So maybe they're selling something for 20 grand and they're spending 7,500 to get it done, right? It's too much. You got to get that lower, right? So you just got to be creative and look at those non-sexy things and figure out how to solve the problems. I think that's a lot of fun, personally. That's like the part of the puzzle that I really enjoy. I don't like collecting those numbers, like the financials. Like I don't collect them personally, but I get them and then I can analyze them. Like, okay, we got to do this, right? Earlier in the year, we had an issue with churn. And specifically new client churn. Once we get a client past 60 days, we got them for a long time. But we are having a lot of new client churn again, which was strange. Our legacy client, so we looked at the overall churn. It was great, right? But it's like, something's not right here. So I said, run the new client churn. And it was double what it was for the other clients. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what are the patterns that we're not seeing? And then we basically saw that
your fiance just looked at the numbers and said, "We're firing that guy over there."
Exactly. She pointed at me. Damn it. I guess I'm going on vacation. So we looked at the numbers and we said, there's a pattern here with these clients that are canceling. And we basically found that if they're not getting a certain amount of projects done in those first 2 months, it's a giant red flag and they're going to cancel. But also the number of hours that we're putting in for those projects makes a big difference too. So if we're only doing like 3 or 4 projects a month, but it's taking us like 160 hours to do those 3 or 4 projects, that's a big red flag. That means that there's a lot of little inefficiencies in their process. So we need to educate them on how to get things done effectively. Because at the end of the day, the agencies like to blame us for the problems.
Absolutely.
So we recognize that. So it's our responsibility to do everything possible to show them that, hey, like we're doing our part, and also give them the feedback. Because when they come to us, they're open to change, right? They want to know how to do it. But I think that naturally people just kind of want to fall back into their old habits.
Sure.
So we have a lot of little things that we do to fix those issues. But
right on. Yeah. Those are great tips, man. And how can people get a hold of you?
I mean, if you want to contact me directly, you can just email me, chris@dudeagency.io. You can also follow us on the Facebooks and the Instagrams. And then we have a YouTube channel too. Oh, and I have a podcast as well. So if you
plug it.
Yeah, go to my website, dudeagency.io. And then I think in the footer, we have a little podcast tab and you can get access to our show. It's also on iTunes and all the other things. I don't produce the show. I just record the episodes. I'm like the dancing monkey. They're just like, hey, record this. I'm like, okay.
Awesome, man.
Little grinding wheel. I just do my dance.
I appreciate you joining us today, man.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.